G'day everyone, Viv here. Hope you're all keeping well. Welcome back. It's time for a grudge match. Vikings versus Saga again, 4 points. Almost the same setup as last time. Let's have a look at the table, get into the game. Before we get on with the game, I do hope you watch to the end because it's a super exciting finish. But there were several things that happened during this game that I got wrong. I just wasn't looking at the dice carefully enough, and those mistakes would have seriously altered the outcome of the game, I believe, anyway. Anyway, it's a good, fun game. I had a great time playing it. I hope you enjoy watching it. I'll catch you next time. Looking over the shoulders of the Saxons at the Vikings here. This time they've deployed their berserkers out here on the flank to try and run it alone, and everything else here on their left flank. The unit of warriors, second unit of warriors, unit of Hearthguard, and their warlord. They start the game with 6 Saga dice. Again, we're playing on a 3 foot by 3 foot board. It's exactly the same terrain as last time. Same setup. New warlords come in this time to get some vengeance, clear out this rabble, and go sack the cathedral. So that's the Vikings on this side. The Saxons closest to you have deployed everybody on their left flank. So again, 3 units of warriors, their Hearthguard up the front, and their warlord sitting just behind. Similar sort of game plan. I think the Vikings are going to try and get up in there. The warlord wants to get up in there. The Saxons might just try and keep a little wall around their warlord, but we'll see what happens. They also start the game with 6 Saga dice. Let's get into the first turn. Same as the first game. Saxons on white, Vikings on blue. Highest goes first. So the Saxons with their 6 will have the first turn. This is how they've allocated their dice. The Fjord, I'm not 100% sure. The Stout Hearts, Defenders of the Realm, 2 activations for 2 units of Warriors, and an activation for a unit of Hearthguard. During the orders phase, we'll use Stout Hearts, makes all of the units +2, so all of my units of 8 Warriors are now units of 10. We'll also activate the Fjord, which allows me to roll a Saga dice for each unit of 10 men, so I can only roll another 2, as I've explained earlier. So 2 more axes, and all we've done there is allocate them to Clash of Shields. Not expecting melee this turn, but look, just in case the Vikings do something extreme, I've got a little bit of extra defence there. So the Saxons will start their first turn by activating a unit of Thanes, and just moving them up into this, this gap here, just to cover this advance from these berserkers coming down. And I reckon we'll just leave them there, try and hold that wall there. Second unit of Thanes activating. Excuse me while I reach over there. And they're going to come up into this gap here. Just to advance on the centre. Now we do have 1 more activation dice for the Anglo-Saxons, but I think we'll leave it there at this point. Play a little bit conservatively and let's see what the Vikings do. Viking turn 1. This is how their Vikings have allocated them out. 2 activations for the Hearthguard, for their Herdman. 1 for the Bondi, Heimdall, Frigg and Thor. First activation is an easy one. We'll activate this unit of Berserkers here and just move them up. No holding back with those guys. They want to get in there for the attack as soon as possible. Bloodshed. So we'll spend that Bondi dice to activate this unit, and I think we'll send them on an outflanking mission down the side here. This is what we did last time, except there was Saxons there to meet them. There's nobody there this time, so they're going to try and rush down and see if they can get around behind the building. Back in the centre, we'll activate the Warlord using a special rule. We'll obey these guys and get them up in the front. And the Warlord will follow just a little bit behind, not too close, but just enough. Back on the Vikings' right flank, the suicidal Berserkers think they have a chance, so we'll spend that activation dice to move these guys into combat. It's their second activation, so they earn a point of fatigue. So we've sorted out our attack dice. The Viking Berserkers coming in with 4 dice each, that's 16. The Saxon Warriors have 8 dice, all of them are engaged. Battle board abilities, the Vikings will use Frigg which allows them to discard this fatigue here. They will also use Thor, so if anybody survives, they'll fight another round of combat. And the Saxons will use Defenders of the Realm, which gives them 2 extra attack dice, and if the unit is 10 men strong, it gives them an extra 2 attack or defense dice. We've chosen to keep these in defense, so they'll have 8 attack dice versus the Berserkers 16. Saxons hitting on 3s, 4 hits. Vikings hitting on 4s. This doesn't look too good. The Berserkers, unfortunate again. Only 5. Let's roll the Saxon saves. They've got hit 5 times. They had 4 extra defense dice, so savings on 5s. 1, 2, 3, 4. No Saxons die. Vikings, saving is on 5s. 3 of them survive, 1 of them dies. So the Vikings had used Thor, one of their battleboard abilities, during this round, so another round of combat happens against. We've got 4 less dice, so 12 from the Berserkers, 8 from the Saxons. The Saxons, however, this has not been good for the Vikings, have Clash of Shields, so that allows them to add a number of attack dice equal to 1/3 of the men. So 1/3 of 10 men is 3, rounding up is 4, so they get an additional 4 dice. This might not be good for the Berserkers. Let's roll the dice and see what happens. Hitting on 3s. It's just that low armour that's causing problems for these guys. So 2, 4, 6, 7 hits on the Vikings. The Vikings hitting on 4s. It's a little better. It's much better. 2, 4, 6, 8 hits on the Saxons. Let's see how many of the Saxons can save themselves. 3 of them save themselves, 5 of them die. How do the Viking Berserkers fare? Needing 5 to save themselves. 1, 2, they take a whole bunch of wounds and die. So here are the casualties after that second round of combat. We lost 5 Saxons. They earned fatigue. The Berserkers died. So again, must be doing something wrong with them. But their first roll wasn't fantastically good. So again, a unit of warriors on this side saved that flank. That could make a big difference. So with the Vikings having no more activations left, it's over to the Saxons for their turn 2. We already have 1 dice on the battle board, so we only get 5. Still haven't lost any units, so we will take that other dice off the battle board and re-roll it. Here's how the Saxons have deployed them. Again, like you saw in the previous game, not a lot of activations happening. All we've got is a unit of Thanes here. But as fairly normal for the Saxons, Stout Hearts in the 3rd, which we'll do in just a second. Defenders of the Realm and Clash of Shields again. So let's do Stout Hearts. We'll spend that dice. We shall use the 3rd. I have 2 units of 10 men strong, so another horse and another axe. Let's deploy those and get on with their turn. And we've allocated those dice out to shoulder. Let's see what they do. The Saxon Warlord is fighting this fight very conservatively, but our triumphant warriors over here are very excited, and they rush off. They don't heed his commands to stay back, and they move up a little bit. So the Saxon Warlord, realising that he may have made a mistake here during deployment, decides to activate. He's going to ask these guys to get out of the way, because I cannot move units through another unit. They must go around. So they're going to come in here just to create this wall here, hopefully allowing it, possibly at some stage, this unit to also move forward. If it needs to, the Warlord then is just going to move a couple of inches behind his wall. So just quickly recap for the Saxons, that's the end of their turn. They did have 1 unit of warriors move up to the edge of the forest, some repositioning here in the centre, and they've left a whole bunch of stuff on their battle board. So we'll see how the Vikings cope with that if they decide to come in for the attack in their turn. So the Vikings turn 2, they've lost a unit. They've got 1 Saga dice on the battle board, so they've only got 4. We will take that dice from the battle board and re-roll and see what we get. Here's the Viking battle board. 2 activations for the Bondi. They've popped this dice into the activation pool, so we'll sacrifice that, and that allows us to roll 2 dice. So basically I'm getting an extra one. We'll roll those in a minute. Pop some dice onto Loki, which is a cool ability, and we'll see that shortly. So let's roll up these extra dice and assign them to the battle board. So we've allocated those 2 dice off to this ability here. Uller, not sure. But that's the ability there, allows them to reroll failed attack hits. Let's check out what they decide to do with their movement. Hang on, wait a second. One more thing. Loki happens during the orders phase. Discard these dice to immediately remove from the game 1 enemy unit of warriors or levies with 3 models or less. So somehow something has happened. There's either some Viking sympathisers or something in this village, or somehow they've become aware of this unit of 3 warriors on the flank, and Loki decides to help out the Vikings and kills them. Continuing this movement on the left flank here, not really sure why, it might be another mistake, but we'll move this unit of Bondi further around the village. We might as well commit to the manoeuvre and see if we can make something happen. This is where things fell apart for the Vikings before. In the centre, we're going to activate the second unit of Bondi and get them up before we decide to move anybody else forward. So that's where we are at the end of the Vikings' turn. That's all they're going to do. They don't have any activation dice left on their battle board, although the Warlord could activate using determination and activate a unit close by, but he's not going to. He knows that he needs time for his unit outflanking here to come around the left-hand side before he completes his pincer manoeuvre. So he's just going to sit tight. The Saxons did allocate a whole bunch of stuff to the battle board, a lot of defensive abilities during melee, which they're just not going to get a chance to use now because the Vikings weren't as headstrong as they thought, the Saxons thought they'd be, and did not rush into combat. So that's the end of the turn. The Saxons have lost a unit now, so they're down to 5 dice. So we're allocating those 2 axes to Clash of Shields. The Saxons have noticed that the Vikings aren't being as aggressive as they have in the past, and so they're going to try and push forward a little bit and take the fight to them. So here's our fight in the middle of the table. All we're going to do is use our activation dice for that Thane, unit of Thanes, and get these guys up closer into battle with these chappies, this unit of Hearthguard. The Warlord will activate and use We Obey on this unit here. They are within short, so the warriors here will move forward. So the Saxons will now use their battle board ability No Surrender, which allows them to activate units of 10 men strong. As you remember, all of these guys are, according to battle board, 10 men strong, so they will engage these guys here. This is their second activation, however this ability doesn't incur any fatigue. So the movement is free of fatigue. Let's sort out our battle dice, attack dice and defense dice, and see some carnage. Here's our attack dice. So the Saxons coming in with 1 dice each, that's 8. The Hearthguard, the Viking Hearthguard, have 2 attacks each, so there's 8. The Saxons are hitting the Hearthguard on 5. The Hearthguard are hitting the Saxon Warriors on 4. Battle board abilities, the Saxons will use Clash of Shields, which gives them more attack dice. In this case it's 4. And the Vikings will use Ullr, which allows them to re-roll failed hits. Let's roll some dice and see what happens. So the Saxons hitting the Vikings on 5s. It's not too bad. 4. So 4 hits. The Vikings hitting the Saxons on 4s. 2. They also get to re-roll their fails. This is much better. I've only missed 1. So the Vikings cause, 7 hits on the Saxons. Let's get on with rolling some saves. So the Saxons here took 7 hits, and they've saved 2 of them, so they lose 5 men. The Vikings took 4 hits, so 5s will save. They've saved 2 of them, they lose 2 men. Both sides earn fatigue. The Saxons have lost, so they must withdraw 4 inches. So punishing round of combat for the Saxons, they could activate this unit here according to no surrender, but the Warlord's asking them to hold back. He knows that this unit suffered a lot of casualties, and there's going to be a counter-attack coming at some stage shortly, and he's more interested in protecting their border than protecting him, so he's asked everyone to hold up. That's the end of the Saxons' turn. On to the Saxons. They have 5 Saga dice. This is how they've allocated them out. 1 to the Herdmen, 2 to the Bondi, and Loki again will come down and cause some mischief. So still during our orders phase, we'll spend those dice that we allocated to Loki and kill this unit here. Loki's looked down and is quite happy with the Viking progress so far, and gives his helping hand again. That's quite helpful for the Vikings at this stage. So over here on the Vikings' left flank, we had allocated 2 dice to the Bondi. So the Warlord's going to commit to this outflanking manoeuvre and bring these guys down. He'll then activate them a second time to bring them around the building here. So we'll activate our Warlord, and he will use We Obey to get these guys up in the face of the Saxons. He'll then move behind them. We'll then activate the Herdmen and rest these guys. No, we won't rest them. Vikings don't rest. What are we doing? Let's get them forward. Put the pressure on. Our pincer is coming together. So that's the end of the Viking turn. As I just said, the pincer is slowly coming together. They have nothing on the battle board for when the Saxons activate in a minute, so hopefully they can rely on their sheer sort of grit and determination rather than special abilities to weather out any attacks that might come at them. So the Saxons only have 4 Saga dice now. They've only got a unit of warriors left. They're a Hearthguard and the Warlords, so let's see what they can do. So the Saxons, not having a lot of dice, allocate 1 to the Aldermen, their a Hearthguard, 1 to their warriors, the Thanes, Defenders of the Realm, and for the Warlord, he puts it on Bretwalder, which gives him an extra armour, and may re-roll each of the defence dice that doesn't cancel a hit. So just in case someone gets close to him, now we start to see him sort of thinking about himself a little bit. The first activation is the Warlords. He will use We Obey to move these guys up to cover this this gap here. He will then also move up behind them, noticing that there's a big troops coming from his right flank. Hopefully he can keep himself safe. That's his activation. We'll then spend the dice that we allocated to the Hearthguard to get these guys into combat and drive this unit off, hopefully. That's their second activation, so that earns them a point of fatigue. Let's sort out our combat dice. So the Saxons are coming in with 8 attacks, 2 each. The Vikings are defending or attacking back with 2 dice each. The Saxons will use Defenders of the Realm, which gives them an additional 2 dice. And these dice, they'll keep for defence. They don't need more attack dice, but we'll keep them for defence instead. So let's roll up the Vikings, attacking into the Saxons. 2 hits, hitting on 4s. Same deal for the Saxons, hitting on 4s. 5s, sorry. Oh, we're attacking our Hearthguard. Oh, nothing. Nothing. Not good news for the Saxons. So the Vikings did do 2 hits to the Saxons. So they're their 2 hits. They're 2 defence dice from before. They need 5s to cancel. And they roll up 2 dice. It's a stalemate. Nobody wins. The Saxons must withdraw. This is not exactly what the Saxon Warlord had in mind. These guys must withdraw short, directly away from the enemy. Take their fatigue with them. I did forget to use the fatigue in that round. Both combatants earn a point of fatigue. So at this point the Saxons have 1 dice left for their Thanes. Their warriors, they will activate them and just pull them back to sort of address this problem over here. So that's the Saxons' turn done. They have left the dice on Bretwalder, which the Warlord might use if these Viking Hearthguard get in there, the Herdmen. Really disappointing combat here for the Warriors, not able to get in there. The Thanes couldn't do any damage to the Herdmen, but that was surprising. We had to pull this unit back to address this flank here. I was, as the Saxon general at this point, Warlord, thinking that I'd wipe this unit out, move them in there. I'd then be putting pressure on the Warlord, and these guys would just have to keep running around the board. But we've had to address that now, so that's the end of the Saxons' turn. Let's see what the Vikings respond with. The Vikings still have 5 Saga dice. Not a fantastic roll for the Vikings, but they've allocated 1 to the Herdman, 1 to the Bondi, Njord, Frigg, and Heimdall. So let's see if they can sort of get closer to wrapping this up. There could be a Viking victory at hand here. So the Viking Warlord will start by activating this unit of Bondi to move into contact with these guys. Now, the Saxons will elect to spend the Bondi's fatigue to reduce their movement from medium to short. They'll still get into combat, but hopefully by reducing the movement, they'll reduce the number of men that actually make it into combat as well. So we'll get this guy into combat. This guy will be able to get around here. He can't reach anybody else, so he moves into combat. This guy will get into combat. We'll move this guy forward. So the Vikings managed to get those front 4 guys into combat. The Saxons have 4 guys in combat. They're both units of warriors, so the Vikings are hitting on 4s. The Saxons are hitting on 4s. Let's see what happens. Viking attack first. 1 hit. Saxons, 2 hits. Vikings will save on 5s. Saves 1. 1 guy dies. It can be taken from anywhere in the unit. Doesn't need to be someone in combat. And the Vikings did 1. 1 guy dies. So we'll take this guy at the side here. It's a draw, 1 casualty each, so the Vikings must withdraw. Must move short, or at least very short. These guys don't need to move too far. We just shuffle them back a little bit. And both sides earn some fatigue. So the Viking Warlord will activate. First he'll use the battleboard ability Njord, which allows him to remove a point of fatigue from himself and every other unit within medium of him. So we can get rid of one of these off of Herdman. He'll then use We Obey to move these guys forward. I wonder if they can make combat. They can. So let's resolve this combat. So we have the combat happening there. The Vikings have 6 guys in combat. The Saxons have 4 guys in combat. Battleboard ability starting with the Vikings. They will use Heimdall, which gives them 3 additional attack dice. So we'll choose 3 more of these. The Saxons don't have any battleboard abilities, so they can do nothing. The fatigue on the Saxons here, the Vikings will use that to decrease their armour to 3. Both units of warriors, so armour 4. So the blue dice are hitting on 3s, the Vikings hitting on 3s, the Saxons hitting on 4s. Let's roll the Saxons first. 1 hit for the Vikings. The Vikings hitting on 3s. Considerably better. 2, 4, 6 hits on the Saxons. So let's roll up these wounds for the Saxons. Savings on 5s. So far they've saved 1. They saved 2. So 4 guys die. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 hit on the Vikings, saving on a 5. Does not save, so we lose a Viking from the back. The Saxons have lost this and must withdraw. The Saxons must move short away from the enemy. Both sides earn fatigue. And so far, it's looking pretty good for the Vikings. So the Warlord will now finish his turn by moving up. He's feeling quite confident, so he's going to jump there into the middle. We've got 1 activation dice left for the Herdmen. With them, we're going to try and activate them to attack these guys. They must attack the closest unit, but they're both pretty much the same. So will attack the warriors. The Saxons will spend the fatigue of these Vikings to reduce their movement to short. I'm pretty sure they're still going to get in there. Yes, waste of a fatigue. So everyone in this unit will fight. There'll be 4 dice versus 4 dice. So here's our combat. The 2 herdmen versus the 2 eldermen. 4 dice for the herdmen, 2 dice each. 4 dice for the eldermen. Hitting on 5s. Both sides are hitting on 5s. However, the Vikings will spend 1 of these fatigue to increase their armour to 6. And they will spend the other fatigue to reduce the enemy's armour to 4. So the Vikings are now hitting on 4s. The Saxons are hitting on 6s. Let's do the Vikings first. 2 hits. So we'll give them to the Saxons. The Saxons hitting on 6s. Ho ho ho! 2 hits. So we'll give those to the Vikings. Saxons save on 5s. They save 1 of them. So 1 guy dies. The Vikings save also on 5s. Oh no! They both die. Not good news for the Vikings. So there we go. That's opened up a bit of a hole now. The Warlord again is looking mighty exposed. He has a tendency to do that, doesn't he, Stupid Viking? So fatigue for the battle melee combatants, and fatigue also for the Warlord because he was within short of a unit that was destroyed. Let's just quickly check this unit of... yes, I'm pretty sure they would have been in range as well, so they will also earn another point of fatigue. And that's the end of the Vikings' turn. I just quickly need to mention something. I've no idea where these troops came from. I'm just adding up the Saxon SAGA dice, and they should have 4. They had 4 last time, they'll have 4 now. But all of a sudden, I've got 2, 3, 4, 5. I've looked back through the footage, and I don't know where these guys came from. If they're casualties or whatnot, so I'm going to remove them. I'm not 100% sure, but once we actually edit everything, I'm sure it'll become clear, so that might change things a bit. So the Saxons only rolling 3 dice, because they already have 1 on their battle board for Brett Walder, so let's roll these up and allocate them off to the board. So this is what the Saxons have done. Brett Walder again for the Warlord. 2 helmets into the combat pool, so they're worth 2 either attack or defense dice each, and an activation for the unit of Thanes. Let's see if the Saxons get lucky and can finish this game again with another win. The Saxon Warlord will activate. He will use We Obey and Side by Side. He can just fit past this guy to make contact with the Viking Warlord. Side by Side brings this guy with him, and he is also within distance, so they will fight the enemy Warlord together. This is an exciting moment. So the Saxon Warlord has 5 dice. His little Elderman has 2 dice. The Viking Warlord has 5 dice. Saxons will use their battle board ability, Brett Walder. This increases the Warlord's armour to 6 and allows him to re-roll defense dice that he fails. The Vikings will use Frigg. This allows them to remove a point of fatigue and gain an attack dice. So there's an additional dice for him. He removes his fatigue, so the Saxons can't use it. The Vikings now will use the fatigue on this warrior to reduce his armour. Actually, to increase his armour to 6. Both of the Warlords now are armour 6. The warrior, the Hearthguard, is armour 5. Let's decide what we're going to do. Roll some dice. So we've had to think about it. This is what we'll do. The Viking Warlord is going to attack the enemy Warlord. He'll ignore the Hearthguard over here. So the Saxons all obviously are attacking the Viking Warlord. They're hitting on 6s. Let's roll it up. 1 hit. It's not going to be enough. He'll cancel that even if he doesn't save it. And none from this Warlord either. So let's see, even if he fails this, which he does not, the Saxons must withdraw. They haven't won. So they must withdraw. That was a little bit surprising. I really wasn't expecting that. Both sides, everybody earns fatigue. Warlord, Elderman, and the Viking Warlord. I wasn't expecting that, so let's see what they do now. In my excitement, I totally forgot about the combat pool, which would have made a huge difference. That would have given that combat an extra 4 dice for the Saxons. But I forgot it, so we can't do it now. We will activate this unit of Thanes, only 3 of them left, and we will charge into these guys here. I'm not going to spend the Saxons' fatigue to reduce their movement, because they'll still get there anyway, so let's get these guys into combat. So there's 4 Vikings, there were 3 Saxons. They'll use the combat pool to give them 4 extra dice. The Saxons will elect to spend 1 of these fatigue points to increase their armour to 5. The Saxons will spend this fatigue to increase their armour to 5, and the Saxons will reduce it back down to 4. So Saxons hitting on 4s, Vikings hitting on 5s. 2 hits on the Saxons. Saxons hitting on 4s. 3 hits on the Vikings. Vikings will save on 5s. 3 Vikings die. And 1 Saxon dies. So the Saxons have won, and the Vikings must withdraw. So this fight really is coming down to the man, isn't it? The Vikings must withdraw. Let's get them out of there. And both sides earn fatigue. So this is the glorious dead for the Saxons. And it's a similar situation for the Vikings, not quite. End of the Saxon turn. The assault on the Viking Warlord was unsuccessful and were repelled. The warriors here charged in, defeated the Viking warriors. They had to withdraw, but we've got a huge big flank happening here, so we'll see what happens. I thought that might have been the end of the game then, but not so. The Viking have 4 Saga dice, so the Vikings going all out here. No activations, just Loki and Ulra. So let's have a look. It's fairly straightforward, I think, what's going to go on here. We'll start by using Loki to kill this guy. The Warlord will then activate and use We Obey to move this unit. Now we just need to quickly check. If you activate a unit for movement within short of an enemy, they must attack it. And they're just out, actually, just out. So they can move freely. This is 6 inches this way. Oh, they could contact that Warlord, but we're not going to do that. We'll just move these guys up here. Pack them in nice and tight. And then the Warlord will now move. He can reach around these guys to come and attack the Warlord. He'll bring his fatigue with him. 1 point, and we have combat. Hopefully we can kill that Warlord. So again, second time I think the game's going to end, but we'll see what happens. 5 dice for the Viking Warlord, 5 dice for the Saxon Warlord. The Vikings will use Ulra to allow the Warlord to re-roll any attack dice that fail to hit. He will also spend this fatigue to increase his armour to 6, and the Saxons will spend the Vikings' fatigue to reduce it back to 5. So Saxons hitting on 5s, 2 hits. Vikings hitting on 5s with re-rolls. 1, 2. So 2 versus 2. Okay, Saxon savings on 5s. Ignores the first one, saves the second one. Ignores the first one, saves the second one. It's a stalemate, and the Vikings must withdraw. What's going on? So the Viking Warlord must withdraw. Both sides will earn fatigue. I had moved those warriors up there, sort of hoping that if my Warlord suffered more wounds and he could save, he could just sacrifice them using resilience. But not to be the case. Right-o, on with the Saxons' turn. We'll see what happens. Surely it's got to end soon. So Saxons' turn. Just before we do that, I did make one mistake with the Vikings here. These guys should have stopped very short away from the Warlord. So they should be back here, so I'll just push them back a little bit. Let's roll up their Saga dice. They're only getting 3 dice now, but it's fairly sort of decisive what's going to happen. So let's allocate these out and get on with it. Here we go. A couple of dice into the combat pool, and Brett Walder to increase his armour and allow him to reroll any defence dice that don't cancel a hit. So it's fairly straightforward. The Warlord's going to charge into these guys and assault them. He has to assault the closest unit. So let's get our dice and see what happens. So the Saxon Warlord is getting 5 dice. The Viking Warriors are getting 4. We will use our combat dice here, spend both of those to get 2 more dice for the Saxon Warlord. We will also use Brett Walder, which, as I mentioned before, increases his armour. So the Saxons are hitting on 6s. He's hitting on 4s. He will spend their fatigue to reduce their armour to 3. They will spend his fatigue to reduce his armour to 5. So the Vikings are hitting on 5s. Score nothing. The Saxon Warlord is hitting on 3s. Oh my god. And scores 1. Do they save? They do. Oh my god, the Warlord needs to withdraw. This is insane and intense. He has to withdraw 4 inches directly away from them. And that's the Saxons' turn. What are the Vikings going to do? It's got to be this turn. It has to end now. The Vikings get 4 Saga dice. Let's allocate them off. Here we go. Loki's going to take care of some business for us again. Ulra allowing us to reroll attack dice. Let's move the Warlord. He's going to activate side by side and we obey. He's going to attack the Saxon Warlord. He is within range and he's going to bring his men with him. So during the orders phase, Loki will kill these guys, which means that the closest unit now for people to attack is the Warlord. Warlord for the Vikings is getting 5 dice plus 4 dice from the Warriors. The Saxon Warlord is getting 5 dice. Let's see what happens. We'll allocate Ulra to the Warlord's attacks. So he's hitting on 5s, they're hitting on 5s. He gets some reroll, so we'll do them separately. Let's do the Saxon Warlord first. He's going to attack the enemy Warlord. He gets 1 hit, again hitting on 5s, which is going to do nothing because even if the Warlord fails his save, which we'll roll right now, he fails it, he gets to discard the first one he fails. He's fine. Let's roll their attacks hitting on 5s. Nothing. Let's roll the Vikings Warlord. 1, 2, 3, plus rerolls. No, 3 hits on the Saxon Warlord. Can he save himself? He cancels the first one, saves one of them, and dies. It ends with a Viking victory. Holy crap. That was so intense towards the end there. I do not believe it. A Viking victory ultimately in the end. Yes, there were a couple of things that I did wrong. The heat of battle, sort of a couple of mistakes there. But I can't believe that the game went on for that long. And there was so much toing and froing at the end there. What a game. I loved it. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to play more Saga soon. I'm going to set up a different table. We'll play a different scenario. The second one. And yeah, we'll be back soon. Wow, I'm buzzing. Catch you next time. See ya.